Well, hi, friends, and hi, Sarah. Welcome to the real story behind her business. And I love your business and I love your stories because I'm part of your email list and I love how you share your stories, Sarah.
Thank
you.
you.
If you don't know me yet, I'm Angelique Binet. I'm the founder of Social Media Love. And what I do, I help women entrepreneurs to leverage social media, Facebook ads, to share their message and make money out of sharing their message. So one of the way we share our message is through our story. And as women, most of the time we have stories that are maybe, hardships, or sometimes it's something happened out of our control, but we are so resourceful that we make it a business and then we work it out. So today, Sarah, tell us, where are you talking from?
I am in my guest bedroom, but we are in Chicago, Illinois.
Yes. So
I'm
so excited that we're together. So Sarah, tell us, before we deep dive into your story, tell us, who you serve as a business owner. Tell us more about Topiarius.
Yeah, so Topiarius is a landscape design, build, and maintenance company. We are located here in the city. And we serve the luxury market with clients who are interested in spending anywhere between 10 to 15% of their home's value in this urban environment and about 20% of their home's value in a suburban environment.
Yeah. So if you don't follow Topiarius yet on Instagram, if you see, I love the flowers you post every day and the amazing patio, I want all of the stuff you do in my backyard. It's so beautiful.
Thanks.
So before we dive in, I want to ask you, I always ask that, when you were a little girl, what was your first, or, the thing you were always playing with, or a game you loved, especially?
I did a lot. Both my parents were teachers, and so that was the natural go-to for me. I was able to set up a small little play school in our basement, and I had a chalkboard and I had a little reading table. And that's back when, they would bring home bunches of photocopies of things and teacher books, and I would just play and teach whoever was in my basement, which was nobody. I was playing by myself. So, but I think, I also had a creative side to me, and there were a lot of fun things that I like to do with my friends, which would be, whatever we could do outdoors, construct and play. And one of my favorite stories is when I decided that I was going to use whatever was in the garage to build a miniature golf course in our backyard.
Oh, wow.
And so I had a gutter, and I don't even remember all I had. It was not very fancy, but I decided that it was good enough that I was going to charge the neighborhood kids to come and play. So for 10 cents, you could come and play around in my backyard.
Oh, wow. Do you have photos of that?
No. No, I had to be 10, 8, 9, 10, yeah. I don't know. And it was, no. My father was not thrilled that I was charging the neighborhood kids. He thought that was, I don't know, extortion or something, but I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, no, you were on it. So before you went to Topiarius, or you built Topiarius, what was your most burning desire before you started your business? Bring us back to the before.
To the before, I was thinking about that this morning. There's a lot of different steps in the process, but really what it ended up being was that Craig and my husband and I, who own the business together, we're living in Massachusetts. We were probably about 2 years into our marriage, and we had moved out there for my job, and we had bought our first house. And back then, we didn't have a lot of money. We weren't able to hire anybody to do anything, but he had been in the green industry for quite a while. And so he taught me how to take care of a landscape. And I got very interested in it. And so way back then, so this is probably, Topiarius is 18 years old. So this was probably close to 20 plus years ago. that I found gardening and working with plants and getting my hands dirty and doing the hard labor of building a patio, I found it to be really satisfying. And it was an interest that connected the two of us. So we did a lot of that stuff together. And as we were there a couple of years, we weren't particularly happy in the positions that we were working in. And so Craig came up with this idea. He's like, well, we both want to move back to Chicago to be with friends and family, but what if we start our own company? And he's like, a landscape company. And I was like, well, sure. I mean, when we were that unhappy that any new idea just sounded like a brilliant idea. So that idea stuck. And so I chuckled as I was thinking about this morning, because we were young, which made it somewhat easy, I think. I don't know. Now as I'm older, I don't know if it's any easier, but to just pursue that idea. And we didn't have a business plan. Our plan was to come up with a name. And Craig was like, I don't want to call it Sara and Craig's Landscaping because we're not going to sell that. Who wants to buy from Sara and Craig? And I was like, yeah, I totally agree. So I remember him sitting in our bedroom office, and he was searching the internet for names of what we could name our company. And he hollered, I was in the kitchen, and he hollers, and he's like, Sara, come here, I've got an idea. So he's like, what about Topiarius? And I'm like, what does it mean? And he's like,
that's what I asked you the first time.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. And I'm like, he's like, it's of or pertaining to ornamental gardening. And I was like, that name marinated with us for a little while, and we both really ended up loving it. And even to this day, as hard as it is to say for some people, which is funny to us, and it's totally okay, we fell in love with it. And the first thing we did, and I go back to our business plan, which was we invested several $1,000s in a logo. We had no brand. I mean, we had no plan. But we decided, as poor as we were, a logo meant that we were official. And it makes me laugh, because I get branding now. I get why you do it and how important it is. But I was like, that doesn't, I mean, what were we, I don't know what we were thinking. But it made sense. And so we hired somebody to do it for us. And we have this logo that we loved. And we're like, we've made it, right?
We are in business.
Yeah, with a logo. We haven't made it. We're still living in Massachusetts. So at that point, we decide, okay, the next part of our business plan is to sell the house. And in order to buy a condo in Chicago, you have to have jobs in order to get a loan. And so got to get a job. So Craig found an ad for a landscaping position out here in Chicago. And I contacted a girlfriend and was able to get a position with her at a university here in the city in human resources, which I had no experience in, but we were friends. And so she's like, sure, you can do this. I said, yes, I can. And so we sell the house, we pack up, we get back to Chicago, we're settled. And within that first week of us both going to our new jobs, we had every intention of starting this business together. That was still on our radar, that wasn't going away. But Craig looked at me on it as he was dropping me off in front of the university. He's like, I'm done. I want to start it. I'm going to quit this job today. I think he had been there like 2 days. He's like, I'm going to quit, and we're going to go for it. He's like, what do you think? And I was like, well, I can eat mac and cheese forever. So if we don't make any money, it's okay. And he quit. So he quit that day, and I worked for 2 years with the university so that I got some more HR experience. I was able to take some classes within their MBA program and kind of beef up that side of our business. I was also, from a practical standpoint, I was able to have health insurance and some income while he worked the business out in the field. And after 2 years with the university, I quit and joined him full time, and we got ourselves started.
I love how it takes that, I'm just going to do it. Like, do you remember how you felt? Like, how did it feel like physically?
It was both terrifying and super exciting. I mean, we had just signed a mortgage. We just bought this condo, and it was like, and we have gracious parents, but no one was going to bail us out. So we were on our own. And we just, it was terrifying. I think Craig was so terrified. I knew I had a job, so I kind of felt okay. But we just always thought, it was terrifying. It was crazy. So I specifically remember sitting in the car, our green Ford Focus wagon, to be specific, 8 in the morning or whatever it was. So, yeah.
I love those stories. Yeah. So that was 20 years ago, you said?
Yeah, we started in 2003. So
yeah.
18,
okay.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest struggle at the time to make it happen? So Greg said, okay, I'm going full time in our new adventure. But what was the struggle for you that was, to make it really happen the way you wanted to make it happen?
Sure. It was probably a couple things. One was that my time was divided. So I would be in a headspace of work all day long. And then it would be coming home to help with the books or help with the marketing or advertising. And the web, even 18 years ago, was not what it is today. I mean, social media didn't exist. We were still our first. So back up. The hardest thing, I think, was just my split time, but it was also then, how do we get people to know about us and get started? Because social media wasn't there. The web wasn't what it is now. And the logical thing for us to do was print advertising. So
wow.
Put an ad in the newspaper, the Chicago Tribune.
Was it a photo of you and Greg in the newspaper?
No, it was our logo.
Yeah, the logo.
Money on. That was just our logo, and we got, I think, 1 or 2 calls, and then like 25,000 calls from other advertisers.
Yeah,
but it got us started.
Wow! Did you get your first client through the newspaper?
That's a good question. I don't think our first, but it may have been one of the more luxury clients that we did. Back in the early 2000s, middle class families, particularly here in Chicago, had access to lines of credit and were able to do some investing in their yards. And so we had a lot of friends that lived in like blue collar neighborhoods that could invest. So we had a lot of those kind of clients to begin with, that people we knew through word of mouth. But that newspaper ad probably was what got us into the downtown area.
Wow. So tell me more about the dream of creating luxury landscape. Where is that coming from? What is it inspired by?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Necessity? No, I say that flippantly, but it is something that we have. So when the markets in the 2008 to 2011, 2012, those 4 years, when the markets really shifted and our clientele base really shifted, we had to figure out who was it that we wanted to serve. And I'd like to think that it was our design power, our prowess or what have you, but it really was a function of, we don't want to go under. Who can we sell to now? And so we started hiring carpenters so we could do a lot of things. So we have a full staff of carpenters and construction people and maintenance staff. So we do a lot of what we do in-house. We don't have subcontractors. And that really helped us get onto other projects that were larger and could be more elaborate, because we had this, we could design that, but we also had the staff to install it. So it was a lot out of necessity that we moved in that direction. And then as we got more and more comfortable there, we were able to hire more designers who had, even better skill than we had to design those spaces. And so it was really a natural evolution to some extent that we ended up in that market. But we also found that luxury markets are a lot of fun to work in, because there's more money, and there's more money to do creative things. And that's inspiring. That's what gets us excited, is the creating and the new ideas and not doing the same thing twice.
Yeah. That's what I love when I'm on your Instagram account. It's so inspiring. It's like being in a spa, like spa, it's very Oh, it's very class chic, what I call. And what I'm always impressed by is that you use plants, like vegetal, like a plant-based stuff, to make it luxurious, as well as the framework and everything. But that's the part I like. I love how you use flowers and plants to kind of give that luxury feel, and that's what I love personally. So, and I love your Instagram account. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So when you started with being really like full-time together, what was the thing you wanted to be able to accomplish? Like you knew that it was coming. Now it's a real thing that's going to be our full-time, both of us. What is the thing that was driving you at the time to make it the project of your life?
Yeah. Oh, I'd like to say that I had thought that through. Both of us, my husband and I, are both very, very stubborn. And so if we say we want to do something, we're going to do it until it's a clear success or a clear failure. For me personally, I don't know how much of a long-term view I had early on. That developed for me later as we began to grow. But early on, the funniest story, it's awful, but awful, not awful, but it is this. So I never did manual labor. I cleaned. I knew how, like when I started working when I was 15, 16. So all the jobs were about cleaning or, washing dishes or that kind of thing. So I knew how to work, but I had never done manual labor before. And so that's what my job was. Craig and I were the two that designed, that did the installations, that did all the bookkeeping. We did everything. So when it came time to the spring, which is usually cold, rainy, and just muddy, it was time to go to work. And so one of the first days I was out in the field with Craig, we had to install mulch, which is just ground covered, or, put over ground cover soil. And I don't know how many yards of it we had, but we had buckets and buckets and buckets of it. And it was behind this fence next to this building, and you couldn't do anything but carry a 5-gallon bucket of mulch in. And it was early spring, it was cold, it was wet. And this was our first job, and I was miserable. I was like, I cannot believe I just left an office job where I'm warm. And carry buckets of mulch around. And I remember at some point I started to cry, and Craig's like, go ahead, just go, you can't cry in front of a client, Sarah. You have to go, got to make that private. Go sit in the van. So I remember I took a couple breathers, and then I helped him finish out the day. I was like, this is it. I am committed. I'm doing this. So as we're driving home, he looks over at me, and I'm crying again. And he's like, we've got all this extra mulch in the back of the bed. I've got to unload it at the condo, and then I got to return the truck. So he's like, go ahead, go in, take a hot shower. I was like, no, I am in. So through the rain, I stayed outside with him, and we unloaded the rest of the mulch. And then I finally went in and took a shower. So I don't know. It's like there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in landscaping. So I kind of had to get I had to get some pretty thick skin pretty quickly in order to survive.
Yeah. So what made the difference? What made you go through that? Like, what was the thing
Right?
What happened?
I think I wanted the autonomy of having my own company, my own job, all for me. It was all about, I wanted to prove to myself that this was something that I could do. Cash hadn't really entered my mind at that point. You know how Eleanor talks about cash, influence, and autonomy. Cash and influence really hadn't entered my mind at that point, but autonomy was really pretty important for me. So I really wanted just to have my own say.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes to try to stick to it, right? Oh, wow. So what was your how to reveal that epiphany, like even through like the pain and the cold, like what was your, I don't know, your God or your whatever, like, you know, it has to be stronger than your vision even, like.
Well, you know, it really was, you know, everybody thought we were crazy for Craig and I to go into business together. And I can see why. I can see how it can work with spouses, and I can see how it doesn't work with spouses. And, you know, I think that partnership really was significant. I mean, he was, in the beginning, it was constantly encouraging, and he liked having me around. And so I think that it was, would you say, I don't know if it would be, we're not lovey-dovey people, but I suppose love is what inspired the two of us to just keep working with each other and make it happen. I also realized that it was this new path that I was on was so out of everything that I'd ever done in my life. It was really just thrilling. And so I liked the thrill. I liked the newness of all of it. And so I felt relatively safe. There was not, yes, it was risky financially, but it was comfortable. Everything was new every day. And I didn't have to go to the gym anymore, you know, so that was a definite perk. I could eat and drink whatever I wanted, and it didn't matter. But I think I would definitely say that the drive came from wanting to be successful and prove that I could do something, that we could do something. And yeah. So, and you proved it multiple times, right? So what was the first big payoff for you after, you know, all this work, whether it's financial or spiritually, or even like, what was the day where you said, oh, that's why I am doing this, you know, this is it? Oh, they're sprinkled throughout over the last 18 years. There have been times from a thank you from an employee that is like, oh gosh, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. It's been a thank you or comments from a client who are like, this has changed my world. Just having an outdoor space that I can go and sit, to moments where we have a little bit in our bank account and are like, okay, this is working. But it ebbs and flows. I don't know if there's any one moment. I maybe equate it to a little like playing golf. The frustration of trying to get a ball into a hole. Like I'm convinced men must have come up with this game, because like who's going to hit a small ball so it falls into a hole yards away. But when I've played golf and I get the golf ball into the hole, it's like this euphoria of like, this is why I play golf. And then you're like frustrated for the next year because you can't play again. And so there's, I guess, spattered wins throughout the last 18 years where we're like, yes. And then it just kind of keeps us going. So I honestly, it's not been until this last year where I was in the coaching program with you that I really began to understand how to scale and not just grow. And that probably is a huge marker 18 years into this business where I kind of had a mind shift of, all right, now this is my goal kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you had one advice to give to another woman entrepreneur right now that is maybe, 18 years before you right now, what would be the one thing you would share with her?
Well, I've got a couple. Can I have a couple?
Oh yeah.
Because I thought about this because I wanted it to be at least valuable. So my first is figure out your relationship with money. So I read Jen Sincero's book. I'm reading it over here. You Are a Badass at Making Money. And she gives you an exercise in there about writing to money personified, about all of your feelings and thoughts and that kind of thing. That was eye-opening to me because I didn't realize how many things were in my way to want to make money. And even to the point of knowing that making money was okay. I didn't grow up with that message. I didn't grow up with it saying the opposite. I just didn't know I could, as a woman, say, I want to make money. So I would say for sure, understand your relationship to money. And then the second thing is learning to trust your instincts. I think female instincts are very powerful. And for a long time, I could have easily just said, Craig has a good idea, or this other person has a good idea. It's probably a better idea than mine. And it hasn't really been until this last year where I have gone, no, I've got ideas and they're good. So wow. I'm not trying to discount all these years previous to my life, but
I know what you mean. Exactly.
Yeah, so those two things.
That's major. Know your relationship with money and trust you here. Yeah. Here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I love it. One more thing. I know we're almost done, but you said earlier, I like to always be in the new, something that excites you is to be, innovating. So how do you keep up with that? How do you do that on a regular basis, even 18 years in?
Yeah. I don't always do a great job of it, but when I do pay attention to it, I gravitate towards my floral design and my floral background and making that part of what I do regularly. And so we're bringing floral design back into Topiarius with a little more deliberateness over this next year, and I'm really excited about that. So I have been running the business, and now I'm finally kind of getting to be working on it with some creative ideas. So I would say, that professionally, I'm working on that and on the marketing and all the photography and that kind of stuff I find very, very fulfilling. But even at home, we still do all our own gardening. And so for me to get out in the garden is very, very inspirational and very calming and very centering. So.
Wow. Do you do floral garden or veggies as well? Or
we do all of it. The front side of our house is actually our vegetable garden. And so everybody that walks by our house sees all our vegetables.
Wow.
Yeah. So Craig's passion is definitely vegetable gardening. I like all the flowers, but we need to work together. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so final question for you. How do you find social media helps you and your business to be more visible? How would you describe this?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of our jam, right? We're a visual brand. And so we are pretty lucky that way because it's all about images. And so we are able to showcase flowers and gardens and, luxurious backyards in most of the formats. So at least we're on LinkedIn and we're on Instagram, on Facebook, and Pinterest, and YouTube, a little bit of YouTube. So all of those really cater to how we can show off ourselves. So,
yeah, and Clubhouse now.
And Clubhouse, yes.
Any question I should have asked you that I didn't?
That's a great question. Well, it's kind of like the thing I ask everybody at the end of an interview, like, what else do you have to tell me that you haven't already told me? I'm excited about what's going to be happening in our future. I think Craig and I are still growing, and just because your business gets older, it doesn't mean that you stop changing, stop growing, and stop thinking. There's always room for new ideas, new growth. And that's exciting. You don't get into being an entrepreneur because you want to do the same thing over and over again. So I guess that's it doesn't stop. So it's pretty fun.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sara. Amazing. Thank you for sharing in-depth stuff because it's to see where you are now, and I see you with those buckets questioning. But that's such a good imagery to understand the inner strength that it takes to keep at building your dreams, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so
Sure.
much. And then if you guys have comments or you want to reach out to Sara, the website is right at the bottom of the screen. And if you're listening the podcast, it's topiarius.com, and I'll put the links in the description anyway of the podcast. So thank you.
Thank you.
I hope I'll visit Chicago someday and say hi and visit one of your kingdoms somewhere.
I'd love to have you. I can't wait.
Because I just love what you do. So keep doing the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching the replay. Oh, I see a comment here. Oh, Brittany. Hey. Sorry, I should have. I'm glad I didn't. I forgot to check the comments. What a dynamic duo showing up on my screen today. Woo! That was us.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.